Hello everyone! A lot of interesting things have happened since I've been in Germany. The first 5 rounds of the Tata Steel Chess Tournament, Magnus Carlsen won the second title event at Lichess under a different name, not Danny the Donkey anymore. I've heard Hikaru Nakamura played a match against a hustler from South Africa, so a lot of things to cover. But this here game, Viswanathan Anand versus Fabiano Caruana, this is round 3 of the Tata Steel Chess Tournament, was the most requested game in the comments. So I haven't seen the game until yesterday, but I've seen the diagram from the winning move by Anand, and it's quite amazing. The title of the video might seem a bit harsh, you know, being his worst nightmare from India, but when I saw the diagram, it immediately reminded me of Anand's win against Caruana from the Singfield Cup last year. So let's see this game. And so far I think Anand has 4 points and he's tied in second place with Anish Giri. And I think there are 3 people in second place. In first place still Shakhriyar Mamediyarov with 4.5 points. And an interesting game today might be Carlsen versus Qf1. Qf1 didn't really have a great tournament so far. Only 2 draws against Karakin and Vladimir Kramnik. So I guess she knows her way around Russians, so she might surprise today against Magnus Carlsen. But let's get back to this game. So Anand has the white pieces and he opens the game with e4. And this seems to be a fashion, like one year everyone plays d4 knight f3 and then the other year everyone then again plays e4. And Caruana seems prepared for this. He goes e5, we have knight f3 and knight to f6, the Petrov defense. Something he also used against Magnus Carlsen in round 1. So knight captures on e5, d6, kicking the knight back, knight f3, and the knight captures on e4. And the d4 by Anand. Instead of d4, Carlsen played queen to e2 in his game in the first round. So d4 by Anand, this is the classical line. d5, bishop to d3, bishop to d6, both players castle. We have c4 and c6. There are some other options available here, like maybe knight to f6, defending the d5 pawn that way, but that does seem like a loss of a tempo. But it's also a variation. You could maybe defend it with bishop to e6. Caruana goes for c6. So we have queen to c2, adding more pressure to the e4 knight, and now knight to a6. This does seem like an awkward place for the knight, but the knight comes to a6 with a threat of knight to b4 attacking the queen and the bishop. So white also has to waste a move, a3. We have bishop to g4 now, threatening to capture on f3 and mess up white's pawn structure. And we have knight to e5 now, placing the knight on a nice central square, also harassing the bishop on g4. So bishop to f5. And b4 now. We have knight to c7, and here we have this very nice move by Anand f3. And it seems like he's winning at least a piece. You know, if you move the knight, obviously you lose the bishop on f5. But as Caruana already played the Petrov defense twice in this tournament, in round 1 against Carlsen and here against Anand, he's obviously very prepared for this. So bishop to g6. And here we have c5, attacking the bishop on d6. But of course the main question is why not capture the knight on e4? Well, if f captures knight on e4, then you get bishop captures on e5, d captures on e5, d captures now on e4, attacking the bishop on d3, and it really doesn't matter what you do, black is getting much more out of this position. For example, if you capture, then queen to d4 check, picks up the rook, maybe, okay, you can't afford to capture the bishop first and then the rook after the king moves, but, you know, you win the exchange at least. And if you don't capture, your only other option is to move the bishop. The only available square is e2. After bishop to e2, again, queen to d4 check, and you lose the whole rook here. So after bishop to g6, c5, first either forcing the bishop back or forcing him to capture. Fabiano captures, bishop captures on e5, d captures on e5, and now knight to g5. And Fabiano spent a lot of time on this knight g5 move. He spent, I think, around 25 minutes. We have bishop to b2, d4, and f4 now. And this was probably what Fabiano was calculating when he played knight to g5, this f4 move, and here he played knight to d5. He offers his knight on g5, but in exchange he will grab the rook on f1. So f captures on g5, Anand accepts the challenge. We have knight to e3, attacking the queen and the rook. Queen moves, and now first bishop captures d3, queen captures, and knight captures on f1. King captures on f1, and queen to g5, capturing the pawn. So if you look at this position, Anand has now 2 pieces for the rook, and of course it's a better position for white, but you know, you have to play it. Knight to d2, you have to develop those pieces. Queen captures on e5, and knight to f3 now. First improving the position of the knight, kicking the queen from the central square, and only then will Anand recapture the pawn on d4. Queen to h5, and now queen captures on d4 with a nice tempo and a very nice thread of queen captures on g7 checkmate. So Fabiano defends this, f6. We have queen to c4 check, king h8, and now bishop to c1. Rook f to e8, bishop to f4, a5, and bishop to d6. So a nice maneuver by Anand. Bishop from b2 to c1 to f4 to d6, and now this bishop will be a very powerful piece here. Also, you know, useful in protection of the king side. Now this knight on f3 can move. Also protecting the rook from a8 to be developed by rook 8 to d8. The d file is now closed for the rook. So very nice choice for Anand. We have a captures on b4, and now queen captures on b4, and queen to d5. It seems that Anand is ready to capture the pawn on b7, and why would you allow this? Of course, Fabiano could have played queen to f7, but now, okay, he does defend the pawn on b7, but it's a very passive position for black. Instead, he decided after this queen to b4 to play queen d5. To gain a more activity for the queen. There will be now queen to d3 checks ideas. The rook will also be able to come into the game. So Anand again accepts the challenge. Queen captures on b7. We have h6, making some breathing room for the king, so you can activate those rooks. King to g1, not allowing queen d3 with tempo. So rook to a4. Now Caruana finally activates the rook. We have h3. Also not making pawn on h2 a weakness, and also giving the king some more breathing space. Rook to c4, and we have queen to b2 now. Queen to d3, rook to a2. Anand doesn't allow Caruana to play rook to c2. And we have queen to d1 now with check. King to h2 and rook to c1. So it does seem like it could get unpleasant for the white king. There's always this queen to h1 check that you have to take into consideration. But even after queen to h1, after king to g3, there's really not a good follow-up. So you have to improve on this. Anand starts pushing his passed pawn. We have a4, f5. We have queen to b7, and now f4. The threat is, of course, if Anand for some reason captures the c6 pawn, then queen to h1 is checkmate. So you have to prevent this. You have to capture the f4 pawn, bishop captures on f4, and now rook captures on c5. Now Caruana grabs the c5 pawn and creates a passed pawn of his own, the c pawn. Rook to d2, we're attacking the queen, and queen captures on a4. And now queen to f7. Rook to g8, and here we have bishop to e5. And now you have all sorts of threats here. It's a very unpleasant position. For example, if you play something like, let's say, queen to e4, trying to defend or something, then this bishop captures on g7 check. That's a pretty big threat. Rook captures, and now queen to f8 check will pick up the rook on c5. So not a lot of moves here for Caruana. After this bishop to e5 move, he played queen to c4. Here he offers an exchange of queens, and there's really no move here for Caruana. After Anand plays his next move, and I know this game was played a couple of days ago, you probably already seen the move, but in case some of you haven't, feel free to pause the video here, find the move Anand played. It's a crushing move, it's a brilliancy, so do feel free to pause it and find it for yourselves. So I will, as usual, give it a couple of seconds. Okay, for those of you who found it, congratulations, it's a brilliant move, and for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, the move Anand played was rook to d6. And this is a beautiful move. There are so many options for black here, but none of them actually work. The most blunt one, actually, queen captures on f7. Why not capture the queen? Rook captures on h6, and this is checkmate. The pawn on g7 is obviously pinned. Instead, maybe you'd try something else. Maybe you'd try to capture the bishop. Rook captures, but then the rook is no longer defending the queen on c4. Queen captures on c4. You lose the queen and the game. Are there any other options here? Well, you could try maybe king to h7, so the king would now be protecting the h6 pawn, but now simply queen to g6 check. King has to go back, and now queen captures on h6 is checkmate. And aside from these three variations, we also have the option of maybe going queen to c1. So the queen from c1 would be defending the pawn on h6, but this falls to a very nice rook to d8. And black is again without a move. The threat is, of course, queen captures on g8. This will be checkmate. If you capture, then queen captures. On g7 will be checkmate. Whatever black plays, there is always a nice checkmate lurking by. So yeah, after this rook to d6 move, Caruana resigned the game, and this brilliancy was composed by former world champion Viswanathan Anand. And I don't know. So far, any tournament Anand plays, any game Anand plays is actually brilliant. I mean, it doesn't seem like he has bad games for quite a while now, and if anything, he definitely shows that he should. I mean, they should have allowed him somehow to play in the candidates. Either invite more players to the candidates, or I don't know. It just doesn't seem fair that a player of this caliber will not be playing in the next series of the candidates. But yeah, that's the game. Regardless of that, Anand still manages to dazzle us with his brilliancy, and I do hope you enjoyed this game. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon. And just something that is unrelated to chess. If any of you have seen the movie Man from Earth, there is now a sequel, Man from Earth, Holocene. I've seen it, and the movie is free to watch. You can download it for free. You can stream it for free. There are no, legal obligations for you. So if you enjoyed the first part, you can watch the second part. I enjoyed it. I like, a fiction story like that. So yeah, once again, I do hope you enjoyed it. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon.